Jim McConnell writes fiction with the occasional dabble into poetry. We love a dabble. She's published 2 collections of short fiction. The most recent, Current Disasters, was published in March with Roadside Press, heard of them. California native, she's lived in Ohio since 2008, and it's her first time in Toledo. We're in Ohio, yeah. Columbus, lovely. Please welcome to the stage, Jim McConnell.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to take a detour into fiction. You don't want my country. We're going to start. Her boyfriend with a difficult name. Every quarterback was named Steve. Every cheerleader, Jennifer. The captain of the baseball team, Michael. She didn't see the overwhelming whiteness, the sameness of her hometown until she opened her eyes in another country. She'd never even traveled to another state, and here she was 3 flights later in a foreign land, as her mother would call it. But she was the foreigner, unable to understand what the family was saying, her boyfriend translating every so often. Her boyfriend with the difficult name her mother called him, refusing to learn how to pronounce it, as if he was named that just to cause trouble. She imagined her mother arriving for breakfast, sniffing at the blood sausage, cheese spread, and bitter coffee the family offered. Unlike her mother, she dove into the food in the flow of words, grateful there was more to the world than what she'd always known. This is from my first collection, Welcome Anybody. It's called Spin Cycle. When the heat subsided, the frogs rained down like a bill come due. Alone in the aquamat, Audrey watched the aggressive green downpour, the hand washables limp in her hands. Voices shouted, brakes squealed, car alarms wailed. Croaking frogs filled the street, and wind swept through the open front door. When it was over, silence set in. Audrey exhaled and set her delicates on the chipped countertop. She glanced over her shoulder at the pajamas and socks tumbling in the dryer. She moved to the open door, shielding her face from dozens of frogs jumping past her into the laundromat. Sounds of the frogs leaping into open machines, flesh landing on metal, followed her outside. On the sidewalk, Audrey nudged the tiny creatures aside at the edge of her sandal. Some were dead, others just sat there breathing. The street was silent except for a woman sobbing and the hum of the overhead cable lines. Audrey saw only a sea of green frogs around her, like moss blanketing a fallen oak. She lifted her gaze. This sudden moss covered not just the street and the sidewalks, but the tops of cars and bus shelters and the newspaper boxes chained to light posts. Aubrey bent down to peer at the frogs in the gutter, close enough to smell the stink of brimstone or sulfur, or whatever it was that clung to the poor creatures. She sniffed, thinking of high school biology, when a boy dared her to lick a frog before they dissected it. He told her that's how people got high. Who, she asked, could be that desperate? Her next thought, where in the world, was interrupted by the sight of a frog looking up into her face. No time for this to register as the frog croaked at Audrey and jumped into the air. Another frog croaked, then another, until the entire street was croaking and hopping around like popcorn in hot oil. Audrey jumped back, landing on a frog, the flesh turning to mush under her heel. She looked through the aquamat window and saw that the dryer had finished, her warm clothes waiting for her return. She stood still as the frogs hopped around her. Instinct told them to jump, but not where to go. This is a microfiction. It's called The Wrong Way. Of course, I thought as the car slammed into me because I stepped into the road looking the wrong way. Why else would I have spent the last few weeks purging the boxes of old journals and scrapbooks and love letters if I hadn't seen the end coming? It wasn't your burden to go through my memories, and I didn't want you to see that I wasn't everything you hoped I was. We always break up near water. 1, we sit on the banks of the river on the last day of summer. The drought has left only a trickle down the center of the dry riverbed. So there's no sound of water to distract us from the words hanging between us. Nothing will be final until one of us walks away. 2. We arrive at a pool party hosted by your coworker. After starving myself to fit into a bikini, I need only 3 watery cocktails to trip and fall into the pool. You leave embarrassed and your boss has to drive me home. 3. We stand near the confluence of 2 rivers in the middle of the country as we road trip from one coast to the other. Silence for miles, followed by sharp words stabbing each other until we're hollowed out. The next day, we're overly polite, as if we just met. 4. We keep returning to each other a bit out of love, but mostly out of fear. We're more miserable apart than we are together, we tell ourselves, holding space until someone better comes along. 5. We end for good, standing next to the ocean, giving up like a bloody boxer who can't take another round. The tears you try to hide taste like the sea as I kiss you goodbye. Thank you.
Jen McConnell.